This is part 2 of section 3.4. I want to now create a truth table for this statement. And again, I want to build up all of my pieces individually. I have regular P, regular R. I need to not Q, so let's do that. Not Q. So that's going to be the opposite of this column. So I have false, false, true, true, false, false, true, true. Okay, and then regular R, so I don't need any more of that. I'm going to need to find P or R. So let's do that. That is a disjunction, or, and for a disjunction, the only time a disjunction is false is when both pieces are false. Everything else is true. So if I'm looking at P and R, so this column and this column, so I have true or true, which is true. True or false, which is true. True or true is true. True or false is true. False or true is true. False or false, that one's false. False or true is true. And then false or false is false. Okay. So I've done that part. I also need the not version of that. So not P or R. So that means the opposite of this column. So I have false, 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 true, false, and true. Okay, so I've done everything in front of the arrow here. Now I need to do this set of parentheses. So I need to do not Q and R. So this is and, so I need them both to be true in order to have a true. So I'm looking at not Q and R, so these two columns, not Q and R. True and false is false. False and false is false. True and true is true. False and true is false. True and false is false. False and false is false. True and true is true. False and true is false. So I have now figured out everything in front of the arrow, and this is everything after the arrow. So I'm finally able to do the conditional. I'm actually finally able to do the whole thing. Okay, so I'm looking at these two columns, and I need to make sure I'm going in the correct order. It is if this one, then this one. And remember for the conditional, if our first statement is false, it's definitely true. So what I'm going to do is every time my first statement is false, I'm just going to go ahead and just put a true here. I'm not even going to worry about it. So the first statement is false, so the conditional is true, and true, and true, and true, true. I'm not going to worry about the true versions yet, and that one would also be true. Okay, now let's look at these where my first statement is true. If I have true and the other statement is true, it is true. If I have a mixture of true then false, it's false. So I have true then false, so that one is false. True then false, that is also false. Now, there is an alternate method for doing a truth table. I suggest that you start off this way because this is the least confusing, but it does require a lot of columns and a lot of writing. The other method is perhaps a little bit quicker, but it is a bit more confusing. What I'm going to do is after I've gone through this entire section, I'm going to create one more video where I work each of these using the alternate method. Okay, so you can see it and you can choose to use it if you wish. Okay, so let's talk about the biconditional. Biconditional is symbolized by the double arrow. It is read if and only if, and we often write IFF because mathematicians are lazy, and if we can get away with writing less, we do. It's a conditional that works in both directions. So if P then Q, and if Q then P. Right. The truth table for a biconditional looks like this, because remember, it has to work in both directions. It's a conditional that works in both directions, which means that I need to be able to go from true to true, which is true. True to false is false. Now, normally, if I were just doing if P then Q, this one would be true, but it has to work in the other direction as well. See, if true, then true is true. If false, then true. That one's true, but this direction is false, and it has to be true in both ways. So if it's false on either one, I've got to stop. And if false, then true, that direction is true, but if I do if true, then false, it's false. But if false, then false is the same as if false, then false, and it's true. So with a biconditional, the only time it works is when both statements have the same truth value, when they're both true or when they're both false. That's the only time it works. Okay, so let's look at this one. I want to do a truth table for if P, if and only if Q, then Q. It's hard to say in English. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to build up each piece. So I'm going to do P, if and only if Q. And what we said before on our truth table is that if they have the same truth value, then it is true. If they have different truth values, it is false. Same truth value, so this one is true. Now let's put it into the conditional. So I have the biconditional. If the biconditional, then Q. So that means if this, then this. Remember to keep the order correct. So if true, then true is true. If false, then false, that is true. If false, then true, that is true. Because remember, if your first statement is false, it's automatically true on a conditional because no promise was made, so it can't be broken. And then if true, then false, that one is false.